Some politics for you now. Election day is drawing ever closer, November 5th. So candidates are crisscrossing the state to meet with voters. Quentin Anthony Anderson is a candidate for the U.S. Congress in District 6. That's the newly created district. Anderson held a town hall tonight in Mansfield. About a dozen interested voters showed up, made some cogent observation, and asked some good questions. We did a long interview with Anderson, which we'll hear a little bit later on this week leading up to election night. But joining us live in the studio right now, by magic, Quentin Anthony Anderson. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I absolutely appreciate it. And there was a good group there tonight. I thought they seemed very involved. What were some of the things uppermost in their minds?
Well, I think what they most wanted to know was, what I was going to do. I think it gets very practical when you have a lot of these town halls. They want to know what's in it for them. Why are you asking them for a new job? Why are you asking them to send you to Washington? And I think that's refreshing because at the end of the day, the thing that I think I've been running against is this sort of malaise, this sort of apathy where we get into the ballot box and we vote sometimes for the name that we remember or the last sign that we saw on the way there, and we don't do a lot of our due diligence. So just having people show up and poke and prod and kick the tires, that's the process, and I get excited about that.
Now, when this district was created, a lot of folks down in Baton Rouge were kind of, looking side-eye and saying, well, this was created to help one guy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think that, it is a little bit odd that with a very far right-wing governor and a supermajority Republican legislature that somehow a longtime Democrat got the opportunity to draw the district, and that Democrat is also running in this race. I think that does seem like one of those Louisiana coincidences. I don't have the luxury to sort of run on that. I still have to run on the issues. I still have to run whether it's fair or not, whether there are machinations that were involved in drawing this. But I do think that it is something that voters care about and voters have brought up. Voters don't like the idea that these decisions are being made long before they get to the polls and then their options are being limited. And so hopefully what we've been able to do during this campaign is present them with an alternative, an option that is viable, that's speaking to their issues, and I think that I'm getting a lot of responsiveness to that.
And what are some of the big issues for you? What are you, if you're elected, what are you tackling?
Well, and I always tell people that I started the campaign with things that I care about and that sort of motivated me. So things like addressing climate from a practical perspective, addressing things like youth crime from a more multifaceted approach. I think that public safety goes beyond policing, making sure that we're protecting our democracy, passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. But also what you get is if you're doing the job right, you get other people's concerns. So when I was in North Louisiana a few months ago, one of the reasons I was in Mansfield was that they brought up to me that they were under a boil advisory. And so what they want to know is how are you going to utilize the federal government to getting funding so that we reinforce our infrastructure here so that basic things like clean water are provided to us. So just being able to be responsive to what the needs of the district are. In the rural parishes, they've asked me, do I reaffirm my support for the farm bill? Am I going to be a champion for that? Because in many cases, some of those family farms are very much dependent upon some of the provisions in that bill. So really being responsive to the people. I have things that I care about, but also I think the job is to make sure that I'm taking the concerns of the district to Washington, and those are my top priorities.
I know one of the things you're concerned about is raising the minimum wage.
Yeah. And I think that the most urgent thing that the next Congress can do is raise the minimum wage, especially in a place like Louisiana where, look, let's just be honest, we are never going to raise our minimum wage unless the feds do it. We're always going to stay at whatever the federal government tells us is the bare minimum you can pay a human being. And so it's incumbent upon the federal government to raise that minimum wage and to be practical about it. I consider myself to be a progressive. I believe in a living wage. I believe in $15 an hour if we can get that. But what I also know is that, especially for us who say that we fight for the poorest and the most marginalized, those folks can't afford to continue making $7.25. So if we can make $8.25, $9.25, if that deal is on the table, I'm going to take it and still continue to fight for more.
All right, Quentin, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate that. Quentin Anthony Anderson, candidate for Congress in District 6. Brenda?